walking through the campus of USD in 2008, I had this epiphany that I thought so many people had way before me, which was, this is it. This is what I want to do with my life. I was working here building the MBA Career Services Department from the ground up, helping students figure out who they are and what they want to do with their lives. Hello, meaningful. I also had the incredible opportunity to pursue my master's in executive leadership, which was epic, by the way. And to put a cherry on top, I met some of my most favorite people in life. Look how beautiful they are, that I'm still friends with to this day. And the impact of this USD campus has on my life to this day is unsurmountable. So to paraphrase Parker Palmer in his book, Let Your Life Speak, he defines purpose as when your greatest strengths intersect with the world's greatest need. Now, I wasn't curing cancer, but I had finally found a need that my values, interests, passions, and strengths aligned with, and it felt right. Did you catch that? Don't lose sight of your VIPs, right? And so from that day forward, I continued to pursue career services, develop my leadership skills, and just found this great balance between being challenged and loving the work. And then I got married, and poof, no, not poof, boom. I all of a sudden realized, oh wait, so there's compromise, there's taking turns sharing the load, there's all of a sudden no longer being the center of the universe anymore. And so the day came when he decided to open his own business, and we punched the numbers and we realized that my nonprofit salary was not gonna pay the bills and not going to keep the lights on. So I set out on the journey of selling my soul. Transitioning to the for-profit world, for those of you who are for-profit. And so in that, I had this really interesting transition in this moment of like, who am I, where am I, how am I gonna show up in this space? And when the day came when I received an offer at a world-renowned consulting firm, I shed tears of relief and joy. I had arrived. And from that point forward, I was a fish out of water like never before. Talk about sink or swim. The first engagement, when they put me on, they introduced me as the change management expert, and I barely even knew what that was. It was hysterical. I had to choke back a laughter right there in front of the client. And so it was just this moment of, okay, here we go. Roll up the sleeves, right? Let's figure this out. Day after day, challenge after challenge, client after client, project after project, into the late night hours, trying to prove myself, prove that I was worthy of that offer. And there are certain nights that I had nightmares of Excel spreadsheets and PowerPoints chasing me. Who can relate? And so let me just do a show, take a pause, do a show of hands. How many of in here have ever had a moment where you wake up in the morning and you go, where am I and how did I get here? Right? Okay, and put your hands down if you're referring to a night after drinking too much wine. I'm referring to the mornings that you need a tow truck to pull you out of bed to get into work. And all I was doing, you guys, I was just rolling out of bed and stumbling into my cloffice. You know, office in a closet. You guys developed those during COVID, right? Yeah, and so I found myself asking lots of questions around, like, what am I doing? You know, where am I? What happened? And so I feel like those of you who raised your hand, and me, and I, at some point we may have lost sight of our VIPs and kind of let what we are good at or what other people think guide our paths. Side note, detours aren't all bad, right? You might find something that you didn't know that you liked in the first place, and you also might further confirm what drains your energy. And this is why going down this road, this detour, too long, too far, too energy draining, could really take you off track a little bit too far. I call this the leaf in the wind approach. You can get there eventually, it just takes a while to get you to the good stuff. And so the sooner you can focus in on and learning what your VIPs are, the sooner you can get to the work that you love. And so from that day forward, basically, what I needed to do was recognize that what was challenging for me was when I was in the proving myself state, I started wondering, am I outside of my VIPs? Am I not in alignment with my VIPs? But before jumping ship, I needed to check in and ask myself, is it just because I'm in the learning state and I need to roll up my sleeves and dig in and get through the discomfort? Or am I forcing something? And for what purpose? Am I trying to prove something to myself or to someone else? Did my ego get hurt along the way when I was constantly being shot down by imposter syndrome? Did I let working for a prestigious organization, fall into this trap of letting it romance my ego? We all have our various whys for getting off track. And so that's why I believe that it's very, very critical to intimately be aware of your VIPs. So some of you in here might be saying, I'm not so sure. I truly do know what my VIPs are. So let's explore some ways that you can walk down that path to figure it out. Okay, so you heard me say that I started up career services and MBA. Shameless plug, if you're a student or alum, get yourself to career services. That's what they're here for. That's what they know. They know what they're doing to help you with that, right? If any of you have heard of Brené Brown, she has this awesome living in your values exercise that really can help you hone in on your top values. Ask your friends, family, coworkers, bosses, where they see you shine. Ask yourself what factors were at play the last time you lost track of time on a project because you were so in the zone. I'm also a big believer of not going about this alone. Consider building yourself a board of directors, a personal board of directors, right? These are people that are your biggest cheerleaders. They totally believe in you, and you trust them enough that they are not afraid to tell you when you have a booger in your nose when you're about to walk on stage. So even then, even when you have all of these things figured out, it is totally possible for you to step out of line or step off track, go on a detour that's quite large. And so this is what happened to me. And I found myself, even when my husband's business was consistently thriving, way to go, babe. He and my best friends said, Reyna, this is your time. You go do what you love to do. I still stayed. Why? And it's in these moments, sometimes we need our own interventions, right? We need to kind of close out the noise and just focus and go inward. And so that's what I did. I cleared off my calendar, cleared off my desk, pulled out my flip chart paper, and I started organically creating a process that really changed everything from that point forward. So I'm going to show you a little bit what it looks like. This is the final product. So just to prove you guys, this is up in my office to this day, my office to this day. And to show you a cleaner version of it, what I did was I wrote down key considerations for leaving. Positives, negatives, or fears, right? So one of my positives was, hey, I can go out and I can become an independent contractor, create a flexible schedule, and start building the work that I really want to focus in on. Some of the negatives were things like stability and control, right? Hey, who doesn't like a stable salary with a benefits package, right? I was like, that's going to be hard for me to walk away from. Credibility, being attached to an awesome organization that is very well known. That's nice to be able to say, right? FOMO, fear of missing out on being in the cutting edge, innovative projects. To leave all of that was quite scary. And then I went down to the story I'm telling myself if I leave. I, of course, felt like I was going to fail the people that I was on teams with if I left them in the lurch, right? I also got a little deeper, and I started questioning, am I going to second guess, am I going to feel that I am a failure? Am I going to feel that I am bringing less to the table in my partnership? Is my spouse going to think less of me? Is he going to think that I'm not bringing as much to the table? All of these fears were coming into play. These were the stories that I was telling myself. So I realized I need to have a sit down with him to talk through some of those things. And then the truth. The reality is that I am a much more delightful, joyful human, friend, spouse when I am operating within my VIPs, right? And so what I leave you guys with is that if you ever find yourself needing that tow truck to pull yourself out of bed to get into work in the morning, think about how you can identify what your values are, what your interests and passions and strengths are. How are they in alignment with what you're doing? Start off by trying to get there. And then if you do find yourself getting off track, use my process or build one of your own that gets you back on track. Because there's nothing better than moving away from doing all of this energy draining work and getting yourself into this awesome space of being in the zone, being on track, feeling the energy that the work is bringing in. And believe me, you'll thank yourself for doing that, and the people around you who love you will thank you too.